right. Have you ever had something that you just really were, things were just going really well, and then all at once it just fell apart? That's just a crazy question to ask anybody, isn't it? We've all experienced something like that. And then maybe we've had something where there ended up being a great disappointment, and yet we didn't see how that it would work out, but later it sort of did work out. And then when you look back on it, it actually turned out to be a pretty good thing. Now we're going to look at one verse over in Genesis, toward the end of the book, Genesis chapter 50. Genesis chapter 50. And actually it is the last chapter of Genesis, right before the book of Exodus. Genesis chapter 50. And once you get there, go on down to verse 20. Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. And I want to read just that very first clause of that verse. And it reads like this. And this is a man named Joseph speaking. And he says this: "But as for you, you meant evil against me. But as for you, you meant evil against me." Well, who is speaking? It is Joseph speaking. And Joseph is the leader. He is the ruler in Egypt. He is second in command, second only to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. But there was a lot of things that happened before he got in that position. And who was he speaking to? He was speaking to his brothers. And he said to his brothers, "You meant it for evil." And so we're going to look at that. I'll look at lessons from the life of Joseph. Now, many of us know the story of Joseph from days in Sunday school. The nice thing about Genesis is that it is filled with stories. And stories are, things that stick in our mind. There are things that we can picture. And so there are nice things about that. But just to refresh us who have already some acquaintance with the story of Joseph, I want to go back through and look at this as, well, what is it that you meant for evil? And then we'll look at the rest of the verse when we get through it. But Joseph, was, you hear the term the children of Israel mentioned throughout Scripture, mentioned throughout the Old Testament. Well, these were the actual children of Israel there. You had Joseph, and he was he was the youngest of them at the time that he was born. Later on there, he did have a younger brother. But as he was growing up there, some lessons from the life of Joseph has to do with his parents. His father gave him a coat, a special coat, a coat of many colors, we often call it. But it was something that he had. It was a special gift that he gave to his son. And he was kind of playing favorites right there, right? So there's a lesson from the life of Joseph that starts with his parents, as they were kind of playing favorites. Well, what does that do for the brothers? Causes jealousy, causes resentment. And so you have that taking place. And then the brothers grow up and all of this, and there's this period of time where Joseph has a dream. And this is a dream that comes from God. And he dreamed that there were these sheaves of wheat plants standing up. One of them represented him, and the others represented his brothers and his mother and father. And those sheaves of wheat were going to bow down. Okay, he was having a foreshadowing of what was going to happen in his life. It was that God was telling him that God was going to do great things with him and that he was going to be a leader. So he went and told the dream. Here's another lesson from the life of Joseph, that be careful how you talk about things. Evidently he talked about it in such a way that it came across as very arrogant. His brothers were already jealous of him. So they already, had this against him. Here is our father's favorite. And now he comes and he tells this dream there, and they figure out what he's thinking, or what the representation of it is, that he's going to rule over them. And he's the youngest, how does that come across to them? And so that just fuels their jealousy more. So sometimes we need to be wise, and even we might be speaking the truth, but the Bible tells us to speak the truth in love. And we need to be careful how we speak the truth sometimes. And so even though this was a dream that came from God, and it was a true dream, it was a dream that was going to come true, he needed to be careful how he did that. We would call that discretion. Sometimes you need to be discreet in how you put things, how you say them. And there are ways to do that you can do it from an humble standpoint. Evidently he came across as being very arrogant, or maybe he was very arrogant as he said it. So we need to be careful about favorites. We need to be careful about how we say things. All right, then you have the story of the brothers who have the jealousy already going on, because here's Dad's favorite. He gave him a coat, never gave us a coat like that. And they would be, when they were together without Joseph around, I know that there were times that they would talk about him, and they would talk sarcastically about him and all of that, and they would just talk about the resentment that they have. And then he comes and he tells this dream, and it's like that they're going to be subservient to him, and so that just fuels the fire so much more. And they make a terrible mistake after they do this. They let their jealousy cause them to do terrible, terrible things. And so that's a lesson for us in our lives, is that we need to be careful. I mean, sometimes you can't control the feeling that comes to you, but you can control that second or two before you do a response. And so it's very important in that second or two that you have, that you grab a hold of yourself. And so they needed to exercise some self-control. Here they had talked about him before. They talked sarcastically about him. They probably had even said things like what they would like to do, or they'd like to take him down a notch or two, or they'd like to do all of this. And but then they came to a terrible thought. They thought about taking Joseph, and it came to murderous thoughts. And so we need to be careful about what we allow our emotions to do to us and to grab hold of us and do it. And the thing of it was that there were, all of these brothers that were here, there could have been those that were level-headed in it, and none of them were. They didn't stop this except for one of them. And he said, well, let's not kill him. And so they found a pit, and they threw him down in a pit. And one of the brothers said, keep him here, and we'll go back. And his thought was, okay, we're all out of control here, and there's no stopping what my brothers want to do, but we'll go away and they'll have time to cool off, and I'll come back and rescue him. Well, he goes away and comes back only to find that his brother is no longer in the pit. While he was gone, at least somebody else said, well, let's not kill him. And there was a band of people that came by, and they had the commission from the person who sent them the authority to buy slaves. And so they saw Joseph down there, and the brothers said, well, we will sell him to slavery. And so they did. They sold him. The band of Midianites sold their brother to him. And so they took him away, and now they're thinking, oh, now he's out of our hair. Now he's out of sight, out of mind, you know. And then they thought, well, what are we going to tell our father? So then they took his coat, and they put the blood of an animal on the coat, and they brought it to their father, and they said, whose is this? Of course, they knew whose it was. And he knew that it was Joseph's coat. And so they led him to believe that Joseph had been killed by a wild animal. So there's another lesson there. Be careful about going along, letting your emotions get a hold of you, and then trying to do something, and then to lie about it. And so they came and they lied to their father. One of the lessons in here is, going before that, not lying to their father, but another one is that at least there was the brother that did try to devise a way to come and rescue him. And we should try to find ways to rescue people, should we not? Whenever they, well, you know, none of us are perfect. We've all had our bad days, and we've all made our mistakes. And I'm thankful that there have been times that have people have forgiven me and prayed for me and given me other chances. So he did try to rescue him. Okay, so here's the story of Joseph. So he gets sold, and he's brought before the master of the household. His name is Potiphar. And Potiphar, I don't know how many times he takes notice of his servants, but he took notice of Joseph. And Joseph, while he was in slavery, instead of doing all the reactions to that he could have, he evidently tried to make the best of the situation where he was. And the master took notice of that. Whenever he was told to do something, he was given a task, he did it to the best of his ability. And the master rewarded him. And pretty soon he began to promote him among the servants, and he promoted him to where he was second in command over his household, over his affairs, helped with the money affairs, helped with all the business dealings, helped with all of that. And so you had the promotion that took place in the life of Joseph. Some of the lessons there is, do what you can where you are. I think we have an example of somebody doing that, that we know very well. And it started a Bible study and the situation that he's in. And other people have come and been involved in that. Well, you know, talk about our brother Sam. He could be just feeling sorry for himself. He could be causing all kinds of trouble and all kinds of stuff like that. But instead, do what you can. And came, and just think of the ministry that's taken place there, the people that have come to the Lord as a result of doing that. But anyway, he was there in this situation. He got promoted. And then the master's wife took a fancy to him and had her eye on him, so to speak, and wanted him to come and engage in their proper, in an affair. And he said, no, I cannot do that. Said, your husband has given me everything here. He's put me over everything in this situation that I'm in. The only thing he's withheld from me is you. And he said, I'm not going to do that. And so it prevailed after time. She kept trying to seduce him. And then one day he did not fall prey to that, and he ran off, but she grabbed his coat as he left. And so she had this garment here. And then she got